Every day, a truth is revealed.
King David. The name conjures images of a golden age, a unified Israel, a vast empire stretching from the Euphrates to Egypt. But what if this magnificent portrait, so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, is largely a myth? What if the archaeological record tells a radically different story, one of a smaller, more provincial kingdom, whose glory was amplified centuries later? For decades, the ground beneath ancient Israel has stubbornly refused to yield evidence of such a sprawling empire during David's time. Why this archaeological silence? What does it truly reveal about the man behind the legend? Prepare yourself. Because the true scale of King David's reign and the reasons it was embellished might just shatter your most cherished historical beliefs. The biblical narrative is unequivocal. David establishes Jerusalem as his capital, conquers surrounding nations, and lays the groundwork for Solomon's even grander empire. He's depicted as a military genius, a charismatic leader, a figure chosen by God. This narrative has shaped religious and historical understanding for millennia, but when archaeologists started digging in earnest, a significant problem emerged. The evidence for a vast, unified and powerful kingdom in the 10th century BC, the supposed era of David and Solomon, was surprisingly scarce. Major cities that should have shown signs of grand imperial administration and construction were either uninhabited, small tribal settlements, or showed no evidence of centralized control. Where were the palaces, the fortified cities, the administrative centers of this supposed golden age? The who, what, where, and when of David's empire, when scrutinized through an archaeological lens, becomes incredibly blurry. This initial lack of evidence isn't a definitive refutation, but it certainly raises profound questions. It forces us to ask, are we looking for the wrong kind of evidence, or are we looking for an empire that simply didn't exist in the way we've been taught? This is where the archaeological debate becomes intense and deeply divisive. On one side, you have the Minimalists. They argue that David and Solomon were, at best, tribal chieftains ruling a small, localized polity. They believe the grand narratives were later literary and theological constructions written centuries later to legitimize later monarchies. They point to the lack of monumental architecture, complex pottery, and widespread evidence of literacy and administration in the 10th century BC as proof. But here's what makes it fascinating. Recent discoveries have challenged this view. Findings like the Tel Dan Stele, a 9th century inscription mentioning the House of David, and the Khirbet Qeiyafa site, a fortified city from the 10th century BC, offer some counter-evidence. They suggest a more developed kingdom was present. However, even these important finds don't paint a picture of a sprawling empire. They suggest a regional power, certainly, but not the vast dominion described in the Bible. The debate between these minimalists and the maximalists, who believe the biblical account is largely historical, is one of the most heated in biblical archaeology. Maximalists argue that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. They point out that many sites from David's time remain unexcavated or were built over. They also emphasize that a vast empire might not leave the kind of monumental traces we expect from, say, the Romans or Egyptians. However, what they don't fully address is the consistent pattern of archaeological findings across multiple sites that simply do not support the biblical scale of David's kingdom. The elephant in the room is the potential for anachronisms in the biblical text, where later societal structures and political ambitions are projected back onto an earlier, simpler period. This controversy highlights the tension between faith-based historical narratives and empirical archaeological evidence. So what's the most shocking revelation to come out of all this? The golden age of Israel, with its grand palaces and international trade, might have occurred much later. It might have been during the Omride dynasty in the 9th century BC, or even during the Assyrian period, and then retroactively attributed to David and Solomon to create a powerful founding myth. This isn't about disproving David's existence, but about understanding the scale of his kingdom and the process by which his legend grew. The implications are enormous. They suggest that parts of the biblical narrative might be more theological and ideological than strictly historical. So why does the true scale of King David's kingdom actually matter? Because it profoundly impacts our understanding of the Bible as a historical document. If the narratives of David's vast empire were indeed later embellishments, it means we must approach Scripture with a more nuanced understanding, discerning between theological truth and historical fact. This aha moment is not about disproving faith, but about refining our historical lens. It reveals that the power of these stories lies not always in their literal accuracy, but in their ability to inspire, unite, and provide moral frameworks for generations. It challenges the notion of a monolithic, unchanging historical truth within religious texts. It encourages us to appreciate the dynamic process of myth-making and nation-building in the ancient world. This allows for a more mature and intellectually honest engagement with biblical history, fostering a deeper appreciation for the complexities of ancient societies and the enduring power of narrative. What enduring lessons can we glean from this debate for our contemporary lives? First, critique your sources. Always question the origins and motivations behind any historical narrative, especially those that serve powerful institutions. Second, history is never settled. New evidence and interpretations constantly reshape our understanding of the past. Embrace intellectual flexibility. Third, recognize the immense power of narrative. Stories, whether historically accurate or embellished, have a profound ability to shape identity, inspire action, and legitimize power. Be aware of how stories influence you. And finally, complexity is the true reality. Simple answers often hide deeper truths. Embrace the nuances, even if they are uncomfortable. These insights teach us to be more discerning consumers of information. We've journeyed through the dust and debates surrounding King David's empire, revealing a truth more intricate than the popular legend. The archaeological silence, coupled with new interpretations, forces us to reevaluate the scale of his kingdom and the powerful role of narrative in shaping history. This exploration doesn't diminish David's legacy. Rather, it makes him a more complex, perhaps even more human, figure whose story resonated so deeply that it grew to epic proportions. It reminds us that history is constantly being rewritten, and our understanding of it is always evolving. The true power lies not just in the facts, but in the meaning we derive from them. If this journey into the biblical past has sparked your curiosity, please hit like on this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support fuels our explorations into history's hidden corners. Now, for your thoughts, do you believe King David's empire was as grand as the Bible describes, or was his story magnified over time for political and theological reasons? Comment grand if you hold to the traditional view, or magnified if you lean towards the archaeological reinterpretations. I'm eager to read your perspectives. Thank you for watching.